4, 3, 2, 1. Hey there, spiritual dope. This is Brandon Hanley, the voice of a generation. I am on with my good friend, Jeremy Todd from the positive side. You may ask yourself, the positive side of what? Of everything. Positive side of everything. Jeremy Todd and I, we go way back. So you've got the podcast, positive side. You've got your coaching, just high level executive success coaching that you've been running for years now. And I've loved watching you kind of grow that business and continue to grow yourself. And we're going to talk today a little bit about leading your life from a spiritual angle and doing it so that you're having a more fulfilling, more successful life. How's that sound to you?
Oh, man, that sounds perfect. Thanks for letting me on your show. I'm jacked up. I'm fired up.
Yeah. BFF. So Jeremy, I think, was my very first podcast. And man, we couldn't, remember we were trying to figure out how to even talk to each other. I think you had to record on your side. I had to record on my side. I had to try and
complete chaos.
Oh, it was terrible. But the conversation was magic, and the magic continues.
Absolutely.
Before we get going, right? So the first thing I like to start these off with is you and I were conduits for, the creative source energy of the universe, right? And when we put these podcasts together, when you and I are connecting, we're not connecting because you and I have a good conversation and we like each other.
Yeah.
It's because some type of message has got to come out of this. And it's got to come through you by being here today. What's that message that the universe is saying to you today?
Well, for me, it's a message that I've been really resonating with recently. Well, I've always been resonating with this message, but recently it's more important than ever that, it's that authenticity and being comfortable with myself and really being with everybody out there. It's, the spirituality part is even being comfortable with that. I think there's so many obstacles in our way and so many negative things that pop up on a day-to-day basis in our life with craziness going on. And it takes away from who we truly are. And it takes away our message. It takes away our spirituality. I'm tired of it. I'm ready to go the other way. I'm ready to really double down on my spirituality and double down on the positivity. Yeah, because damn it, I'm tired of the negativity. And the only way we're going to do it is we're going to lead from the other side. And, that's the side I want to be on. I don't want to be on the negativity side. I want to just, trust and believe in myself with the powers that I have already within
100%.
They've been clouded for years. They've been clouded. And then now with the craziness, they're even more clouded.
Really?
But not anymore, damn it. I'm tired. I'm sick and tired of this stuff. And, we talked briefly before this started about one of the things, and again, I'm going on a tangent, so I apologize. But one of the things
this is a message that somebody needs to hear, and it's coming through you.
Yeah, we talked about, I'm writing that book, and I'm not here to talk about the book, but really here I'm talking about is the exercise of writing. I've never done it. I've never wrote more than 3 pages in my entire life. And now that I'm actually trying to put ideas down on paper, it's allowing me to go through this process in my head that I've never really been able to truly not only just understand, but comprehend. Because things happen in my life and things happen in your life and in everyone's life that they're so hard for us to understand. And I try in my small little brain, try and figure it out. And then, you lose topics, you lose organization in your own mind because you go off on tangents, you think about other things. But as this writing process happens, and this is, I guess, the biggest thing for everybody listening is write down some of those ideas. I recently had a piece of paper and pen next to my bed. So when I'm sleeping, I get an idea, boom, I write it down. But it's just being more organized and then being able to revisit that same thought. When typically in the past, when I would have an idea, I would struggle my way through it or fight my way through it and understand why is this thought in my head right now? Mm-hmm. And then I'd be done with it. I'd move on with it. And then it would come back and then I wouldn't be as clear as I am.
Right.
But throughout this writing process and writing these things down that I've gone through in my life, it's given me a better opportunity to understand, what the meaning was at the time in my life. Why was it brought to me at that time in my life? And what have I actually learned and where I can build from that at this point in my life? So, man, it's just in the last few weeks, last few months, have just been really magical. And, that's why it just ties right into this podcast. I was excited to get on the show to really talk about these things and talk about the things that typically other people don't want to talk about or don't know how to talk about it, or they know how to talk about it, but they're scared to talk about it. And I think that's a bigger thing. How am I going to get judged? What are these?
Yeah.
Am I weird?
To me, this is so first of all, thanks for sharing that message. To me, it sounds like a message of, trying to reacquaint yourself with yourself.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And it's also trying to capture those images that you create in your mind when they're clear and they're vivid and they're fresh on a piece of paper, so that at least when you come back to them, you capture the full essence of what that image was. And because those little flashes of insight are just so powerful. And if you don't write them down, it's like you're saying, when you come back to it, it's a faded version of what it was when you first saw it. You're like, this doesn't seem nearly as potent as it was like 45 minutes ago, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or I could completely forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the other thing. And then I'm like, damn it, what was that idea that I had? It was so powerful.
For sure.
Now I can't remember it at all.
Yeah, right. It's amazing. It's like little short bursts of like capacitor energy. Like, that's the I don't know what you know about electronics, right? But so there's a little capacitor there that the energy gets stored in, so that when you take a picture with the flash, right, it's a high burst of energy in that capacitor.
Okay.
Flashes, but then it dissipates and it takes a while for it to fill back up, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how this is. And I just think that the journey that I'm on now is one of the most powerful and exciting journeys I've ever been on in my entire life, because it's exactly like that. It's those ideas that I've never been really processed throughout in my own head. And I've also mentioned this a lot lately, is that, I believe I have all the right answers already within me. But when I'm clouded by the darkness or the negativity or just being busy or all the other bullshit excuses I can put in my own head and give myself a way out, I've never really had the opportunity to sit down and be within myself and work my way through this and discover the answers that are right there in front of me. Like meditation.
First of all, I'm gonna throw this out at you, right?
Yeah.
I'm reading this book. I love this book. It's called A More Beautiful Question, right? We have been taught to have answers, right? But one thing that we haven't really been taught well, and I haven't been taught well, right, is how to ask better questions, how to ask like those deep questions. And if we don't ask those, if we don't learn how to ask, we don't learn how to kind of do that deep seeking, right? I mean, this is part of coaching too, right? Like the reflective aspect of coaching. I do want to lean back there here for a second, because you talked about being afraid to lead with like that spirituality, right? With that, because that could be perceived weird. And that was really kind of something I had held myself back with, right? And I'm super glad to hear like that, you've been looking for a place to have that conversation. You've been looking for a place to have it kind of not necessarily exposed, but who could I talk to that is going to understand where I'm coming from with this stuff?
Hey, Brendan Hanley.
Absolutely. 100%. Right.
Absolutely.
And then like, there's zero judgment from that too. It's like, all right, yeah, I hear what you're saying. And I agree with, everything you're saying. And the question becomes like, okay, this is where you're at, just like coaching, right? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do with this now that you know it, right?
Yeah.
Now that you know that's what you want to do. So you're doing it through a process of book writing.
Yeah, and I think it's also understanding and just really to have the mental capacity of understanding that, and I love this quote, is vulnerability is my strength. By being vulnerable and being who I am and being weird and quirky, that's my strength. And I've always shied away from that. Yeah. Like, it's maybe not what so-and-so thinks I am, or I don't want to get judged and all those other bullshit things that come in your head. But at the end of the day, none of it matters. And actually, the more authentic you are with yourself, the more powerful you become. Sure. And it's taken me a long time to even understand that point of it, because, gosh, I mean, all these answers that I'm throwing out there in my life, people are attracted to me more now than they've ever been, because it is different. It's what people have always wanted to do, but they can't. They don't have the power. Now they see, they see you and they see me doing it. They're like, you know what, maybe it's okay.
Yeah.
And those conversations are awesome too.
Yeah, it's always awesome to, and I know that even when I started doing the Fatherhood for the Rest of Us podcast, I was like, all right, man, step into your power.
Yeah.
Right. But this is so when I met Jeremy, guys, ladies and gentlemen, I met Jeremy in person years ago at a podcast meetup. And one of the things that stood out to me about Jeremy was, you talked about having to have 100% faith in yourself and belief in yourself. Sounds to me, and I'm not trying to be judgy or nothing. It sounds to me like you got disrupted with some of that, like over the past couple of years, right?
100%.
And that's been something that's kind of been eating you away. But now you're finding kind of a renewal of this of I'll call it, faith in self, self-belief. Is that what I'm hearing? Coming, because I mean, dude, you're bringing the energy. So,
well, there's no question about it. And I think the biggest thing is, it's that old saying, act as if. And hey, if I'm going to be completely honest with myself, I've always tried to just keep telling myself, hey, everything's going to be fine. Everything's going to be good. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be super positive, but I never really dealt with the reality of what I'm actually dealing within my soul. So yeah. Hey, that's me. And yes, I was trying to stay motivated and starting to stay positive, but man, it's those darker things that I never really faced in the past. And now I'm to a point in my life that I just don't give a shit now. I mean, the more and more I self-analyze myself, the better I become and the stronger I become and the happier I am. Right. I've had this realization recently too, and I'm doing a lot of writing about fear. Mm-hmm. One of my fears was always about fear of being alone. Mm. And I really analyzed that about, there's two ways. The initial way I looked at that was selfishly, the ego telling me, well, I don't want to be by myself physically. Like I always want to have a partner with me. I want to have a girlfriend. I want to be married. I want to have all this stuff. So I always felt like, gosh, I mean, what am I going to do if I'm alone? I mean, how can I take care of myself? So it was all physical. Mm. But really the hard part of that and what I've really understood now is it's not the physical part of being alone. It's the mental part of being alone. How can I be alone with myself and my own thoughts? Mm. I've got more time than ever. Now I've actually got to face these things that have always been right in front of me. All these things that my self-doubt, I'm critical of myself constantly. Mm. I don't think I'm this, or I don't think I'm good enough or smart enough. So all these things now that I've understood that the fear of being alone wasn't the physical part, it was the mental part. And now that I'm facing that part of it, it's allowed me to grow exponentially because as I go through these things, I become happier with myself. I mean, I'm becoming my own best friend. Sure. And I think that's so powerful that, we always, and again, this is me. I always felt like I had to have that person.
Sure.
Instead of understanding that I'm good enough and I can be my best friend. And that's the cool realization of that.
I think that there's a huge, that's how we're brought up, man, right? We're brought up, chase the relationship. Once you've got that great relationship, you become whole type of thing. And, two people complete each other and all this other jazz, right? But, that may be the end result, but those two people come together. And I think it's Wayne Dyer that talks about it. Like, you don't come together as two halves and create a whole. You come together as two people. Correct. And you're still two people, right? With your own individualities, you've got to come together as two whole people, right? Yeah. Loving yourself as for who you are and before other people can love you.
Correct. You can't come in halfway.
Yeah.
You got to come in 100% because no one's ever going to fill that void. And that's something that's taken me a long time to really, just wrap my head around that concept because I don't even know what it was. I don't know if it's just a switch one day. I'm like, you know what? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, I kind of enjoy being alone, actually. I mean, it's all good. Right. But man, oh man, the more you get, alone and you start thinking your way through, like little stuff. Jeremy, why do you give yourself excuses for not going to the gym? I enjoy the gym.
I heard you. So here's what. Let's talk a little bit about it. I know that I heard you kind of busting your own balls on your podcast about setting up excuses for yourself and realizations and your own buttons and ways out more than anything. But let's talk about and listen, man. That's everybody, right? That's every human that's out there does this to a certain degree. What I want to talk about though is kind of what you're talking about is kind of leading with spirituality where you've accepted the power within you, right?
Yeah.
And so let's talk about what that means to you.
Well, it's almost for accepting the power within me is tough because I don't know if I've accepted all the power within me. Mm-hmm. It's almost like I'm hitting analogy. I'm going down a big hill. I'm still holding my hands on the brakes, not willing to completely let go. I'm going fast. Don't get me, like we talked about earlier. Take the hands off the steering wheel and just let it go.
Right.
I'm getting closer. I believe in myself more now than ever. Mm-hmm. And just to say, I want to enjoy some wins. Not that I have never had wins in the past, but I want to enjoy a win on this spiritual journey that I'm on now. And maybe it is when I get that book out, that'll be a win, an accomplishment. Maybe I don't even know what it'll be, but it's almost like this is the path I need to go on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I feel comfortable with this path. I don't know what the end result looks like, but I've never felt so good about this path that I'm on that I've ever been in my entire life.
So let's talk a
That's
little
the
bit about
exciting
that.
part.
Like, let's talk a little bit about it. Like, so it's like you're kind of shading your own light, is what I'm hearing,
I think
right?
so.
You're kind of shading your own light, because it's a little scary to admit that what you feel inside is greater than anything that you've ever felt before.
That's exactly right.
Right.
And it is, it's the self, then you have the self-worth. Am I worthy enough? And these things are just, they're, and again, I'm not trying to say woo is me. I mean, believe me, it's the positive side guy, I'm all good. But,
You're in a different space, right?
it's just when you dial down deep into it,
Mhm.
start identifying different things. It doesn't change who I am as a motivational guy, inspirational guy, but it's this new journey that I love picking this part about just to get better. And I love it. It's challenging. It's difficult. It's extremely hard.
Mm.
And it's the best challenge I've ever been on in my entire life. And because of the decisions I've made in my life, they've all brought me to this exact point for a specific reason. And I'm excited about where this is going to go.
Would you call this a resurrection of Jeremy Todd?
I kind of feel like that, man. I really do. It's doing things that I enjoy doing. If I don't want to do something, I just don't do stuff. I don't know how to even explain it.
Well, don't do things that don't bring you life, right? Why would you do something that doesn't bring you life?
Exactly.
And I think that though, there's a precipice here. There's definitely caveats to this message, right? This is once you kind of step into this space that you're in, because prior to that, people would take that as meaning, well, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get wasted. I'm not going to do work, yada, yada, yada. That's not what we're talking about here.
Correct. Yeah.
We're not talking about going out and doing whatever you want. I'm going to go streaking. I'm going to egg windows and all this other stuff. You can do that. Don't get me wrong. Have fun. Have a blast, right?
Been there, done that, right?
Don't be a jerk. But talking about, what are the things that are fulfilling you, right? And looking for those and then adding more of those moments in your life. Is that what you're talking about here?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. And it's doing little stuff that I want to do. Like I went on that trip to Ireland by myself.
Yeah, man.
That was the coolest thing in the world with no plans. Just said, hey, I'm going by myself. I don't know anything. I don't know anybody. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm just going to go do it and I'm going to handle it. And it was a blast. Yeah. I'm trying to plan my next trip. And this is totally off the ringer, but I want to go hunting for some reason. I've never been hunting in my entire life.
Right.
So my buddy, Dustin Von Warnke, Dustin.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm going to go down and see Dustin Von Warnke, and he doesn't know it yet, but I'm just going to plan a trip go down to Texas and go hog hunting.
Nice.
I mean, I've never shot a rifle before in my life, but it just sounds interesting to go out and again, I'm not trying to sound horrible, but kill an animal, but actually not just kill it and then say, see you later, like actually consume the animal. And again, hey, I'm eating, we all eat hamburger and chicken. We don't actually see the beginning process. So I'm excited about the mental journey I go on when I physically kill another animal and then consume that animal. What does that do with my perspective on day-to-day life with what me going to, heck, whatever, go to the restaurant and get a hamburger?
Yeah, no, it's a rite of passage for you is what it sounds like.
It's
right?
It's just something different that I've always thought about to see what that process is actually like. Instead of just, hey, I'll take a hamburger, the hamburger comes, you don't ever see any of it. You don't see the cow walking around. You don't see it as a baby cow come out. Oh my God, it's so pretty. And it grows up and you don't see any of that.
Yeah.
And I'm just really trying to get in touch with everything into my life. And that's just one small area that I can do it. And hey, let's see how it goes. I don't know.
I mean, that could very well turn you into a vegetarian. You never know.
Very well.
Because I'll tell you, I had an experience growing up as a kid. I got the BB gun, and there I was sitting, at the backyard of my grandparents' house. There was like a little bird sitting on the mulberry tree, right?
Yeah.
And I shot it, but then when I shot it, like there was this thing that kind of just went through me. It was just so weird, right? Like when you're ending something else's life. That look, we all step on bugs, right? We all flush ticks. But it has something to do with like this bird, right? And other lives. So it is definitely an interesting experience to take another life, and I mean, and it's very different than fishing, right? Fishing,
yeah, sure,
same, but you're doing the same thing, right? You're taking something out of its taking something out of its natural element, and eventually you're killing it and consuming it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat. That's exactly what you're doing, but at the same time, it's really, I think, important. What it sounds like is you want to go honor that process and experience it for yourself. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
and to your point,
And
how's that any different than buying ground beef?
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, I would never shoot an animal, but I'm going to go buy chicken or whatever. You name the meat. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or have a big steak. Okay. Hey, I get all that, but it's just something I've thought about, and just I'd be really interested about the spiritual part about that is how emotional is it going to be for me? Because I'm a big nerd. I'm a big softie. I mean, I'll probably cry like a little baby.
I think it's interesting. Yeah.
But if I'm going to kill it, I'm going to consume it, and I'm not going to just leave it out there and just waste it.
Yeah.
But I'm also a big believer of everything you eat, that you take the spirit of that animal too. So if you eat garbage food, you take on that animal's spirit and that soul and that process. So if I go out to an animal and kill it, I'm taking on that animal's soul. And I'm interested to see how that's going to make me feel a little bit different. Like when I actually eat the meat, it's going to be a little bit different. Like that whole process is just something brand new I've never done before.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see kind of how that turns out for you, right? And the thing is, man, not everybody's journey is the same, right? Your journey is your journey.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm enjoying kind of the space that you're in, because it sounds like you're kind of at this front end of it, exploring it more. You exposed call it the light, your spirit, whatever within you, accepted it, and again, now you're like, now what?
Yeah, and that's I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer or an exact explanation, but it's interesting, and obviously you know me pretty well. In full disclosure, I'm coming out of a long-term marriage, and it's interesting when you're in a long-term marriage, and again, my perspective, no one else's perspective, but you begin to. And this isn't all marriages. This is, again, I'm just being very vague with this, but you begin to not develop as the person that you truly are. You almost become two people into developing in as one. Not to say there's anything wrong with that. Totally cool. But I feel like I've went down that road for so many years and so long that I'd never really identify with who I actually am, because getting married at a young age, you develop each other's lives through each other, through each other's experiences and preferences and opinions. And again, not to say there's anything wrong, because it's shaped me to who I am today, but going through that whole process and now and again, go back to that fear of being alone. That's part of this process, is figuring out, who am I actually? What do I actually enjoy? What actually does scare me? I don't know those answers yet. And and again, I love it that I don't know the answers.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'll ever know the answers, because part of that process of trying to figure it out develops the person that I truly am going to become.
Sure.
It's like chasing the sunset. You're never going to get it, but it's always bright and always looks good. And I'm always going to go after it.
Man, yeah.
But hey, man, it's exciting, dude. I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be more excited about the future, scared about the future, all at the same time. But man, if anybody's out there listening to the show, it's just an opportunity to really dive down deep within yourself and figure out who you truly are. And the other thing about that is, not that I had to say it, but there's no right or wrong answer to that. It's not about I'm the right person or this is the wrong person I was.
Right.
There's no right or wrong. It's just, who am I?
The important thing is, what you're saying there is eliminate the judgment, right? Don't judge. Yeah. Don't judge who you are. Don't judge the experience. Just be, right? And it's really, and again, that's something that unless and until you do it, that's a very interesting experience. And I picked that up through Headspace, right? And meditation. And it was like, hey, don't judge. It was like, there was I forget one of the meditations, but even at the very, very beginnings, it's like, don't judge XYZ, don't judge this. And while I'm sure I never thought of myself as judging before, I recognize the difference between judging my thoughts and experiences versus not. And when you're not judging them, either good or bad, there's like an elimination of like weight and attachment to that, because when you judge something as good or bad, you're investing emotional energy into that, and that's a hook. Yeah,
that was well said. I mean, you're exactly right, because when and you explained it exactly perfect, because when you do put those emotions on things, they are heavy. and that you don't need to put any emotion on them. These are the things that have happened. This is what the decisions I've made in my past. This is who I am.
Right.
They're not right. They're not wrong. And it's interesting when you talk about judging people, because we're judging. The first thing you always automatically is thinking about judging other people, but the first person you can't judge is yourself. And we always skip ourselves. It's like, I won't judge. I mean, I'm going to judge that person, or I won't judge that person. But the biggest person we got to not judge is ourselves. And what has brought us to this point in our life is all the good decisions and the quote unquote bad decisions.
Well, I'll tell you, what I kind of got it down to was, I tried really hard and made a lot of stupid mistakes, right? And growing up, and the things that I did, the things that I put in my body, the experiences I put myself through. And if I'm still here today, there's a reason.
There's no doubt about it.
There's a reason.
Yeah.
And so I'm exploring that. My purpose changes. My purpose changes. The meanings change. But I investigate that, right? I investigate that. And it sounds like, again, this is kind of where you're at, right? You're investigating Jeremy's purpose. You're investigating Jeremy's self-identity. And I'd like to, separate those two words, myself, right? Yourself. Those are two separate words, right? Those are two. When you separate those two words and you break down what is yourself, that's your inner being. I mean, you look up the dictionary, self is like your inner being, right? Yeah. And so that's the piece that gets so neglected, man. And we show up in our later ages, nothing is all beat to hell. It's like you show up at the used car lot. There's the one that's like got left over because of an abandoned, because they didn't even want to take this wasn't what
absolutely.
This is
absolutely
faded, nothing left on it, right? And now we're like, I can resurrect this bitch.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I think one of the biggest things, like you were talking about there, is that when you are 100% comfortable with yourself, it gives you the ability to, when other people come into your area, if you have a high level of your energies are super high, and they're clean too, because you can have a high energy and not even understand your high energy. So when you're high energy and you've clean, you have no clouds over your head, and then someone else comes and approaches you, you can sense their energies in 1 second. You know exactly what's going on. Hey, I can tell you're going through some stuff. What's up? No, I'm not. Yeah, you are, because I can feel it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it starts spewing all these things that's going on, because when you're super, super clean and you have that high energy, man, you just see life differently. It's a different perspective. There's
100%.
Things that come to you that your brain would block before, but now it doesn't block. So you see more, you're more aware, you're more alert, and you just see the world in a different way. It's powerful. It's
I think
amazing.
what you're saying though there too is when you kind of release the fear and come at it with a clean energy, you're open and receptive to things, because you're not, goes back to judgment. You're not cringing yourself. You're not afraid of that person, because you're good with who you are. Correct.
Yeah. It's so funny having conversations with people now that male, female, whatever the case is, and they don't want to tell you a story. Well, I don't want to tell you that because I don't want you to think of me as this. I truly would never think of any differently than what we have right here.
Right.
I don't care what you did in your past. I don't care what happened, because, hey, the past is what you brought you to me, and now we're having this conversation. I don't judge. Right. But again, it's almost like
I'll laugh at if your story is funny and crazy. I'll tell you.
Well, I'm going to laugh, but I'm not judging.
It was crazy. What you did. You did that.
Oh, exactly.
Right. Okay. Right.
But again, there's no reason to judge anybody, anything, because all of our experiences are completely different, but we're all here. Like you said, we're all here. Everything, this bad decision I made, quote unquote bad decision, this has brought me to this point right now, and I couldn't be any happier. It's great.
So, talk to me how you feel, a big part of this is leading with spirituality for a more fulfilling life. Tell me how you feel like you're doing that now.
Well, I think it's a direct reflection of my podcast. And again, I'm not here to promote my podcast, but that's really what I do is I really promote a peaceful spirit, a peaceful body, peaceful soul, and being authentic and being comfortable with who I am and experiencing that and telling people it's going to be okay. Hey, I've got this podcast that I tell people the most honest, brutal stories in my life, but I don't expect any judgment from anybody. I don't judge myself for the experiences I've made, but I'm living from a spiritual, peaceful place.
Mhm.
but I'm coming out just to help others. And I can't tell you how many emails, responses I get from people all over the world that just call me randomly, email me randomly. Jeremy, you changed my life. Thank you so much. That, I was going through tough times with the COVID. I had a young lady that's in Las Vegas. She emailed me 2 weeks ago and said, Jeremy, you changed my life. I was searching for a motivational podcast. I searched positivity and yours came up. And I was blown away. I lost my job. I have no money. I've got a young child at home. I don't know what to do.
Right.
But just having that mental spirituality, that peacefulness to come over you, man, I'm telling you, it just makes a big difference. And we don't talk about it enough.
I think that a piece of that, right? Like, talk to me like a little bit about what you're feeling when you say spirituality, because here's another thing that I'm kind of tripping over the past few days is when somebody says they're spiritual, but like they don't believe in God or a higher source. There's like, I'm spiritual. I'm like, no, you're not, because like that answers it's void of weight and substance, right? Sometimes.
Sure.
And so, that's why, I say, so when you're saying spiritual to me, what are you saying?
That's a great question. I am agnostic at best. I believe there's a higher power there. I believe there's a higher source. I believe everything in my life happens for a specific reason, and this is why I'm here. I don't think my mind or my brain is big enough to comprehend what all is going on. Mm-hmm. What I do know is that everything that's happened in my life has happened for a specific reason, whether that be in a higher being, whether that be in God, whether that be Buddha. I mean, I've studied every possible type of religion in the world, but I believe there is something else out there. There has to be. And again, I don't know what that answer is. It's hard for me to comprehend. It's hard for me to work my way through it. But what I do know is if I continue to do what I believe is the right thing to do, everything always has worked its way out every single time in my life. It always has and always will. So when you talk about, hey, am I spiritual for a specific, white God on top of a cloud with a white beard?
Right.
That's not my spirituality.
No, but it sounds like you've got there's a grand design, a great.
There's got to be
like a universal intelligence that has kind of a design aspect. Otherwise, you would have driven off the road that night. Otherwise, you wouldn't have made it home safely that one time. Otherwise, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
No, okay.
It's a trippy thing to think about because, typically when you hear the word spiritual, you're it's Jesus and God, and
well, that's the thing.
That's
right?
not my spirituality. I'm sorry. I mean, it's great, and I respect that. I respect all religions, I respect everybody, but it's just not what I believe. I believe
that's just not the one that speaks to you right now, right?
Correct. Yeah,
right.
correct. Yeah, no judgment. Obviously, no judgment.
Yeah. So for me, more recently, right, it's come to kind of my attention, right, that every one of these religions is just kind of a framework to the place where you've gotten to right now, the place where I've gotten to right now. So we've got a set of potential instructions. If we were to arrive at this point in our lives right now and be like, I'm freaking out, man. I know there's something inside of me. It's coming out. I liken it to like being a seed too, right? Like our bodies are spiritual seeds, right? This is a cell right here, right? And that, sounds to me too, like, again, I'm just kind of pulling shit out of my butt, but like it sounds to me like, that spirit within you is starting to unfurl, right? Just like a seed
Correct.
in a shell, and there's no stopping it, right? It's like asphalt doesn't stop like a grass seed from cracking through it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so you've got this life energy right now that is just unfolding, and you're letting it unfold within you right now.
Correct. And then, I've also, looked into, there's a lot of studies or a lot of religions that say that there is no God. We are all our own God. Our God is within ourselves, and we have all greatness. We are everything that we want to be and can be. We just have to access that and work our way through it. That's another thing that, again, maybe that's the answer.
Well, so I can help you out with this one, right? And you just from personal experience, right? So I'm in, but to your point earlier, to what degree? Like, I'm still holding on to I'm holding the wheel just in case, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you got this? Oh no, you don't.
Yeah, I got cruise control on,
Right. But it actually, Joe Dispenza, I think it was Robin Sharma. or Joe Dispenza. I've got 2 10-minute pieces that I listen to all the time from both of those guys.
You have to send them to me.
Absolutely, man. So one of his like if you rise to your level of thinking, okay.
Okay.
So if you rise to your level of thinking, and your current level of thinking is that you are a human being, what's your maximum potential, right? Your maximum potential is your human being potential, which sometimes seems limited. Okay, I'm cool with that. Well, if God is everything, or, is it even within me, then there's something God-like within me, right? At least I'm attached to God somehow, and I'm a part of that. Now I've got a different level of thinking, right? Because now my being has changed, right? Or, again, you can play with like, which beingness are you right now? I'm hanging out in divine being, right? I salute the divinity within you, right? Namaste. Sure. If you're a divine being, then you also are willing to accept grace, which is divine strength, outside strength, right? And kind of, so that changes your level of thinking. I look at everybody as a divine being, right? So
I couldn't agree more.
If we've got that, and that's my level of thinking, what's to stop me?
Nothing.
So, I mean,
yourself, I mean, your ego. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
if you let that go, I mean, that's all stuff you got to let go, right?
Oh, there's no question. Yeah. I think it's all those things that you continue to work on is letting that go, but it's not like hitting a switch. It's not like off on, it's a process. And that's what I love about it.
It's a slow build. It's just like anything else. This is kind of a, and you can change. Again, you're like, all right, well, ratchet that different thinking. But if you rise to your level of thinking, what are you thinking about yourself, right? And again, I'll separate those two words. Sure. What are you thinking about yourself? Is that of an XYZ nature? If it, what nature of the self are you? Right?
Sure. Yeah. No, I get it. It's a tough topic to talk. I mean, I don't want to say it's even tough. It's just, for me, it's just working my way through that mental process. And I think to myself, well, imagine what, like 3 years ago, where I'm at now versus 3 years ago. Where's it going to be 3 years from now? Yeah. I mean, man, it's just working your way through this and getting better and getting smarter and getting stronger and getting more free. I just love life, man. I love the journey. I love the conversations. I love the deep topics. That's what we're here for, right?
Yeah, man. So I feel like that's kind of where you're at, right? You're working on this kind of determining who the self is, right? And then how are you harnessing it, right? You're stepping into your power and making that determination for yourself
every day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, tell me like a place where's a practical application for this for yourself? Like, where's some place you've applied this like way of thinking?
I do it everything. I mean, literally, I literally, I go to work. I'm that weird guy. I do my podcast. I'm that different dude as a parent. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the most powerful places you can do it is not get caught up. It's like being, I'm not a guy that's going to I guess parenting is different for me than a lot of other people that I see, because I had these deep conversations with my kids and I tell them that, hey, it doesn't matter what happened. If you made a mistake, it's okay. It's not a mistake. It's a learning process. It's becoming the better person that you are. My kids are weird and I love it. And I love them for it. Weird to society, they're society weird.
Yeah.
But they're brilliant. They're smart. And we have these deep conversations. And that's probably the most important thing that I can push on to them is that, the power of who they are, the power of what they look like, the power of their selves. The more with kids getting beat down over social media, their friends, and we're talking to them about different stuff that other parents aren't talking to our kids about. They got to deal with this every day. And that's not an easy conversation for them either. But the more we have it, the more we understand that it is okay, and the stronger they become at a younger age. I mean, boy, no disrespect to my parents, but we never had these conversations with my kids when I was a kid. It wasn't even thought of. You never had that conversation.
Different times, right?
Correct. But, hey, imagine 30 years from now, what are my kids going to look like by having these conversations now? Hopefully I'm around for it. But, man, my kids are going to be so much more well off, more happier within themselves, more comfortable with who they are, and not get caught up in the craziness that is life. So that's by far the number one thing, by far.
Parenting, so you're applying it, in your parenting life.
It's just weird parenting, though. It's just different. Not weird, it's just different parenting.
Different from what you grew up with, right?
Yeah, and as many people do, but man, I just think it's the most powerful thing you can do right now is to teach that to your children about spirituality. What does it mean? What does it mean to them? What does it look like? What do they believe?
Yeah.
And then not bashing them like, I was born and raised Catholic. That's the only way you thought, was born and raised Catholic.
Sure.
Jesus died on the cross, God, blah, 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 heaven and hell and all that good stuff. That was all. And if you thought anything different, you were, ousted.
Yeah.
But
literally,
that's not
right?
what literally. Yeah. I mean, literally you were, kicked out of the school. This kid's got something wrong with them.
Right.
But in reality, that's not the case. And again, I think that's one of the most powerful things that I'm doing right now. And the mother of my children does. We're all on the same page with that too. So it's great. I mean, it couldn't be any better right now.
That's cool. So just integrating it with your daily life is kind of how you're applying it practically. And
yeah, again, it's easier said than done, I know, but I do it so often, and I love the reactions I get. I give such different opinions on different topics and different situations that I don't care what anybody says. This is how I truly feel, and this is my opinion. It's not right or wrong.
right.
But I may see something different that may open someone's eyes instead of falling in line. This is what we got to do. This is going to church on Sunday. You're doing this. You're doing that. Oh, I am, and I support that too. Do your thing.
Right. Yeah. Look, man, like we said, everybody's path is their own path, right?
Yeah.
I think that when they created this country, that was the pursuit of happiness, right? The freedom was of religion, was those things, right? Was, hey, listen, that's your thing. A lot of us Christians here, but
how important is that now? Freedom of religion, one of the greatest things. The Constitution, one of the greatest things ever written. I love it.
Listen, man, I think that was a powerful document, right? And I think that's just another one of those things that we take for granted, right?
It is, and it's freedom of speech. It's freedom of, freedom of everything. Freedom to carry a handgun, freedom, you name it, freedom. I just love it because I can be who I am, and we're very, very blessed. What are the chances? This is another thing. What are the chances of us being born in this country at this time out of any other country on any other planet in any other situation? How lucky and blessed are we?
I think that's a huge part of the entire outlook, Jeremy. What you're saying right there is that, if you look at where you are and everything you do is what I'm hearing you say is like as a miracle.
It is a miracle.
Then
we're blessed,
right? Then and could you imagine a better time in any time to become yourself?
No. Can you imagine me being born with horse and carriage? I would have been dead 25 years ago. There's no way I could survive.
I'll tell you, man. I know. Definitely growing up, I did a lot of things that I should have got my ass kicked for, but I definitely would have gotten shot for, in the 1800s type of thing.
For sure. Exactly. I am so soft and so fragile. I would have no chance 100 years ago, but I wasn't. But hey, even now, I could have been born in South America or in North Korea, or you name the country, boy, you could be born anywhere. But here I am.
Yeah, man.
I'm so blessed.
I think it's a beautiful time, man. I think it's a beautiful time we're in. So, brother, listen, I know that we always love catching up. I'm loving hearing your journey and, how you're just, loving on your spiritual self and you keep growing that, right? And you're leading with that. Tell me, listen, people never heard you before, so where should they go check you out?
Oh, man, if you haven't heard me, come on.
Oh, come on, man.
What are you waiting for? Well, obviously, you can remember the Positive Side Podcast. It's the Positive Side Podcast. You can check out the positiveside.podcast.com, but more importantly, just hop on the show. And again, the intentions of the show truly, truly, truly are just to just tell my random stories through life, the stuff that I struggle with, to share those messages, to understand that, hey, if you are struggling, you are going through these tough times, you're not alone. And we're all going to get through this together. We're all going to get better. We're all going to get stronger. So that's the biggest thing. Or you can always email Jeremy at JeremyTodd.com. But, man, more importantly, Brandon, I love this show, man. This is like the perfect show for you. This is like your wheelhouse, bro. This is where it should have been a long time ago.
I was afraid. I was afraid.
Sure, I get it.
I was afraid, but it's where I wanted to be, which is the funny thing, right? And so, what's funny is that it is opened up. It is blown up and opened up, like the reception.
Yeah.
And so, me just going and doing that thing that I was so afraid to do so many years ago, is
Give
just,
yourself permission, you know?
fuck.
You know?
Yeah, everybody.
That's all it is.
I mean, I think that, you know, listen, if you made it to the end of the podcast, that was the message that you needed to hear today, man. It's like,
Yeah.
give yourself permission.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. Thank you so much, Jeremy. And we'll chat next time, all right?
Oh, hell yeah, brother. Thank you.